can get him. Thank you.
I posted a message saying that we'll start at 10:35.
Awesome.
You don't have any impromptu jokes, Kavya?
No, we don't. We're gonna get started. Uncle, can you go to the next slide? Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this event. India Association of Minnesota is pleased to present this informational speaker series for students to learn about a very stressful concept, the college application process. On September 27th, we had our first event with Ms. Natasha Kothari, an assistant admissions director at Clark University. She presented a general overview about the process. And today we are honored to have Dr. Mary Barnes-Klayder talk about the application essay. We will have a Q&A session during Dr. Klayder's presentation. So let's get started. Next slide. So a little background on India Association of Minnesota. It was established in 1973 and it is a nonprofit organization chartered to build a strong and cohesive community of Asian Indians and represent the Indian diaspora to the society at large and serve as a focal point of contact among various Asian Indian partner organizations serving various causes. Our three pillars are culture, charity, and connections. Next slide, please. So the agenda for today, we're going to have Dr. McCluskey-Fawcett introduce our speaker. Then Dr. Mary Barnes-Klayder will give a presentation on the application essay. And then during the presentation, there will be times to ask questions. And then I will end with closing remarks. Just a few housekeeping rules. Please have your audio muted on entry. Enter your questions for the speakers in the Zoom chat. I'll moderate and present them and ask our speaker. And just a quick reminder that this event is recorded. Next slide. Perfect. I wanted to provide a quick background on Dr. McCluskey-Fawcett. Kathleen McCluskey-Fawcett is Professor Emerita of Psychology at the University of Kansas. She grew up in Minneapolis and earned her undergraduate degree in child psychology at the University of Minnesota. Dr. McCluskey-Fawcett received her master's and PhD in development and child psychology at the University of Kansas. She served as psychology department chair at both WVU and KU. During her 30 years at Kansas, she served in a number of administrative roles, including 14 years as Senior Vice Provost for Academic Affairs. She retired in 2014 after serving for 5 years as Director of the University of Honors Program. Dr. Fawcett.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. Glad to see everybody get out of bed for this important event. Before I introduce Dr. Klayder, I did want to talk a little bit about state universities. I know Mary and Alice and I all are products of state public universities, and I think sometimes students overlook the school that is in their own state. You guys in Minnesota have a terrific Big Ten university right in your own state, and where Alice and I both earned our undergraduate degrees. I would hesitate, or I would want you to hesitate to call that your safety school when you're applying for a university. The Minnesota has always made a great investment in higher education, and I know that's not been as strong as it was when we were in school, but you have a wonderful university there. And even though it's very large, one of the advantages of that is all the opportunities that that offers you. So I would really urge you to take a strong look, because the advantage to a big school is that there are so many opportunities, so many majors, so many interesting research and other kinds of opportunities that you can get involved in. You have to work a little harder to not get lost in a big school, but it's certainly possible to get very, very involved with faculty and research programs and other kinds of things. So please don't think, oh, well, I'll put Minnesota on my list just in case I don't get into my first choice school. You're very lucky to have that kind of quality. Having said that, I also want to put in a plug for going out of state to a great state school, which is the University of Kansas, where Mary and I both got our PhDs. We have a lot of students from the Twin City area that come down to KU because it's close enough to Minnesota, but far enough away that your parents aren't just going to pop into your dorm room. It's a 45-minute plane ride when it's safe to fly again. We are a little bit less than half as big as the U. Gorgeous campus if you can come down and visit again when that's safe to do so. And it's a full, we are the flagship university in the state of Kansas. We have about 22,000 undergraduates on our campus. Our medical school is in Kansas City. We offer majors in just about everything except agriculture, which is done at a different university in our state. And there's enormous numbers of opportunities here. We put a huge emphasis on study abroad. Great number of our students study abroad before they graduate. Dozens and dozens of foreign language opportunities. We have a great engineering school, a great business school, a great journalism school. Our focus on liberal arts has always been very strong. So when you're looking around for schools, think about if you want to go to a state school, which is still, even though you're paying out of state tuition, still affordable, please think about the University of Kansas. And speaking of money, other reasons to think about your own state institution or another state's school is the cost, is that most of you, I would guess, are going to go on to something postgraduate. And investing all of your money in your undergraduate years is not going to leave you much for your postgraduate. So other reasons to look at more affordable schools like state universities, frankly, comes down to cost in the long term in terms of your financial planning of how much debt do you want to accrue. All of my children went to the University of Kansas, and 3 of them then went on to graduate school in other parts of the country. And were amazed at how well prepared they were, and frankly, versus some of the students, other graduate students that they met who would go on to what would be considered to be more prestigious in universities, because they got so much attention at the University of Kansas, and not because their parents were on the faculty, because they made sure people did not even know that that was the case. So again, shilling for state schools, great opportunities for everybody. Okay, let's get on with the main event today. I want to introduce my good friend, Mary Klayder. When Alice and Kavya and I were talking about how to put this program together, what would be important, the essay seemed to be something that Kavya and others kept coming back to as an area of concern. Because for most of you, this is going to be the first time you've written something that really has this much importance. And I immediately thought the only person I know that should be asked to do this is Mary Klayder, who was delighted to do it. And I know this is a lot of preparation for her, so I really appreciate that. Mary's been at the University of Kansas for 33 years in the on the English faculty, and is also an honors faculty fellow. Mary has her PhD, as I said, in English, and as you can see here on the screen, she's also a terrific writer who has published her own memoirs. She's one of the most widely recognized teachers on campus, having won many of the major awards. One year she was even named the best professor in Lawrence, which in a town where there are 1,200 professors is really saying something. She's worked with a lot of incredibly talented students, and not just English majors. She's worked with engineers and people who've gone on to do fabulous things in the world of medicine and law. She's one of the main people who helps our students who are preparing for Rhodes scholarships and other international scholarships and like that. Mary writes more letters of recommendation than anybody I know. I can't imagine how many words she has written on behalf of students. Each letter is handcrafted specifically to that student, to talk about that student's strengths, their abilities, their future. I've read many letters that Mary's written. They're always terrific, and really talk about her relationship with the student, the student's relationship with her, the student's intellectual abilities, their personality. I mean, they're just the best letters. So Mary's going to talk to you about how you write a letter about yourself, which is essentially what you are doing. You are writing yourself a letter of recommendation. And Mary, as I said, is a very skilled writer who has tremendous loyalty to her students, and students have tremendous loyalty to her, not just while they're here, but for decades afterwards. Mary has 4,000 Facebook friends, most of whom are previous students who are still very attached to Mary, and for whom Mary still provides mentoring, even though some of them are well into their 40s at this point. So Mary, take it away.
Okay. I guess next slide then. All right. Hi, I'm really happy to be here. As Kathleen, Dr. Fawcett said, that I've written a lot of letters and I've read a lot of letters. I've been on a lot of selection committees, and it helps to be sort of a specialist in nonfiction, which is my area, and that's really what you're going to be doing. You're going to be writing a kind of essay that tells about yourself. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in how, like, there's some formula, there's one way to write it. There's only, what do they want? I mean, I've had students ask me that thousands of times. What is it you want? Which response do you prefer? Like, if I give options on an essay, even in my English classes, they'll say, which one do you like the best? Which one do you want us to really write? And I always say, I want you to write the one that you feel the most interested in. I want you to write the one that you're going to have the most passion about writing. And that's why I actually like a lot of choices. So keep that in mind, that all these people who are reading these letters read other letters, and they want to read the one that someone wants to write, wants to give information about themselves. So preparation for this really is kind of your own style of preparation. I write in the shower. I put things in my head. I move them around in my head. I write in my head when I'm walking. I jot down notes sometimes when I think of something that happened or something that really was a good memory that I want to talk about. So preparation kind of has started already for you since you were 6, probably. I mean, you've been thinking about things and moments that were important to you. So don't hesitate to keep track of those. I do want to say that this is not the last application letter you'll write, and I'm sure you'll be writing them for all sorts of other things during college. And to think of these as ways to kind of update your sense of self is, I think, an exciting way to do it, so that you're constantly rethinking what's important to you. And it's really kind of fun to keep these, as much as it can be kind of embarrassing too. When my mother died, I went back and found things I'd written for college and high school, but I still found myself in there. I found the same person. It was just written a little bit differently. So it's a good thing to keep in mind. We're going to talk about a lot of questions to consider as we look at the different essay categories. Many universities offer you 2 or 3, sometimes 4 different kinds of essays to write. And then that way you have some options. You have a way to sort of think, which one do I want to write about? Which one's going to be the most representative of who I am? And we're going to talk a little bit about how do you write it. But again, I'm going to say there's not a formula. There are lots of ways in, and the prompt itself will give you lots of suggestions. The prompt will ask you things. And so as we talk about different prompts and different categories, we'll talk about ways to go into those. And then we'll talk more about those as we go along. So I think that's the sense of. So yeah, as I was talking about with the preparation, brainstorming, sometimes if you're applying to schools with a lot of other friends, it doesn't hurt, it's not cheating to talk with each other, to share your ideas with each other. And when someone says, well, yeah, but you're really good at this, and you think, oh, really? Is that something? I didn't think about that. Talk to your teachers. Ask your teachers what they think is something that you've been really, has been, that struck them about you. Don't hesitate to write down little small ideas. A lot of the best essays in the world, if you read really good nonfiction, some of the best essays are from these tiny little ideas. People like Annie Dillard, or there are all sorts of writers who find a caterpillar or something. I mean, there's some little detail in your life that might be the thing that really triggers a sense of you. So don't hesitate to sort of write those down and play with those. Again, talk to people. When I say write drafts, I don't mean like full-fledged essays necessarily, but kind of articulate things. I don't know if you do this, but I do this all the time. I'll go, oh, I'll have this idea. I'm going to the store, I'm driving around. I do a lot of, I don't so much now, but walking around or petting my dogs or whatever. I'll get an idea, and then later I'll forget exactly. I'll think, that was brilliant, but it's not there anymore. And it's just get that little note down. Write those little notes down to remind yourself. Play with them. See if you can think of it, if it's developed. If it doesn't, just stick it in a portfolio. Have a folder on your computer. Just stick it in there. It might be more valuable later when something else happened that's related to it. You'll start seeing a pattern. One of the things that's really kind of fun, I feel like I'm a meta-psychologist more than I am a psychologist of others, but you start realizing I do the same kind of thing over and over again. And then you start thinking, how does that affect who I am? And maybe that's a way to think about your essay. And please don't be afraid to start over. I mean, sometimes you just have to trash it and start again. And you might have the same information in it, but it's just the order or the way you started and everything. That's another reason to show things to other people, is that sometimes you just get it in the wrong order. I spend a lot of time, I look at a lot of people's medical school and law school essays, and about a third of the time, it's almost fixed by switching 2 paragraphs. I mean, it's amazing how much difference that makes. And so that's why you keep all these drafts, and it feel like something's missing. If you show it to somebody and they say, oh, well, you should put that in there too, that fits. And it's hard always to know. You're one person. You're just like one person who has all this stuff in you, but it's hard to know quite how it all ties together for you. Okay, next probably. Okay. When you're writing these, I think there are a lot of important things you can learn from the the questions that the school asks, things that tell you a little bit about what they want to know about you. I think we're getting a lot more focused on learning really about you rather than some sort of gimmicky, clever things. So I spent some time looking at a lot of schools' essays over the last couple of weeks. And I think that's an important way to test out where you're going. What are they asking you in the essay? It's a really good thing to when you're thinking about where you want to go. When you're choosing the prompt, think about what you want to share about yourself. Are these things that you would be willing to tell your teachers, that you would be willing for people to know? And that doesn't mean that you have to be really cautious or careful, but you want to be open about yourself, but open in a way that you're comfortable with. You want this to be out there and not to send it or click send and go, oh, I wish I hadn't told them that. But also, so make sure that you're wanting to tell that. And what information do you have highlighted elsewhere in the application? You don't need to replicate. You can extend. One thing that it's good if you have a mention of some activity in your application, you might highlight it and develop it and show how important it is to you, but you don't want it to be just repetition. You want it to be kind of connected so that they start seeing the whole person. Think about which of the prompts, as you choose prompts, which one highlights you the most, which one really gives you a chance to, and we'll talk about the categories, but think about which one highlights you, which one allows you to write what you're most interested in sharing, what do you want them to know about you when you go there, and which one encourages your authenticity in thinking. Again, don't try to do the one you think they want, do the one that, really makes you feel like this is me. This really lets me tell who I am. And I kind of like having written it. And it helps you. I'm convinced I'm a big writing as thinking person. I mean, I teach English, so that makes sense. But I do feel like once you've articulated it on paper, it's clearer to you. So one of the things about trying a lot of different prompts or applying to different places with different prompts is that you'll be able to talk about it if you have an interview, if you're interviewed for scholarships, or if you're interviewed for some special part of that application process. Having written them down or having really thought about them a little bit more, even just little blips, will help you talk about it in an interview. So you're really sort of preparing for the whole gamut of the application process when you do that. Okay. There are lots. These are my categories. I made them up, but they're sort of, I looked at all these applications and thought these were kind of the ones that cover most of the topics that I saw. And so we're going to play with these a little bit, and then we're going to do, I think, 3 at a time. And then I want you to ask some questions. I want you to think about, as I go through each one of these, think about a question you might have about each of those categories and what you might do and what might be, it can be a personal, would this be a good challenge question or topic, or it can be you can ask me anything. That's what I'm saying. Ask me anything at that point after we do that. So we'll start with these first 3. Next. Okay. This is a really, really common essay. What's a challenge you faced in your life? They want to see how you've overcome what's something that's been difficult for you and how have you gotten through it. I think it's a reasonable one to ask, because it's a way for you to look back on something that was difficult, that was a struggle, and most of us have had those. And I think right now we're all thinking about it in terms of how we handled this last 6 months. But so they'll be about a single event. I've read essays about people who are in athletics or moving, or something that happened in the family, an obstacle you faced when you really had to take on, maybe people have had illnesses in the family, or even just something that you felt like you wanted to be able to do and it was going to be a challenge for you. Maybe it was you wanted to learn how to do something that was hard. sometimes it's in our own character. We can talk about our own self. Sometimes people are afraid. I read a beautiful essay once about someone who was shy and felt like in order to be involved in a group that she really wanted to be involved in, it was music. She was a wonderful musician, but she felt like in order to really get involved in the group, she had to get past her shyness. And it was really beautiful because she sort of faced herself and was able to make that whole experience much richer for herself. It was really beautiful. And the emphasis here is not just on, this was hard, I got through it, yay me. It's more like, how did you handle it? What were the things you went through? What did you experience by going through that challenge? What were the steps? Who are the supporters you had? Who are the people that recognized it? Any of those kinds of things are part of that challenge. Okay, let's just go to the next one. An accomplishment, and this kind of can relate to the challenge because these aren't all separate in a way. Sometimes an accomplishment can be based on the challenge you went through to get there, but sometimes recognition for a job well done really gets you farther. It builds confidence, and you can talk about what that accomplishment did for you or why you wanted that accomplishment. Maybe it's related to something in your past or in your family or in relation to a cultural situation, any of those things, but just recognizing, talking about how important that was and what it meant to you. Sometimes accomplishments are all about learning something new, about learning how to play that instrument, or about how to learn a language, or about how to step into another world that you haven't yet lived in. So accomplishments can be really broad and anything. And if you have questions about what might be considered that, please bring it up in the questions. And the next one, okay. And this, again, these are all really pretty related, but sometimes you can place it on a pivotal moment. And the biggest thing about the pivotal moment essay compared to the accomplishment and obstacles or the challenge are kind of narratives. They're kind of linear. You know, you go through this thing, this longer piece, it takes more time. A pivotal moment is really the chance for you to really focus on a moment, a time, a specific event. It could be a personal memory where you were somewhere, or where you met someone, or where you read, did something meaningful for yourself, or even just a turning point. I always tell, when students are talking about changing majors at KU, I always talk about this moment I was standing on a corner, and I can actually point to the corner from my window in my office because I went to KU and now I teach there. I point to this window and I say, see that corner? That corner is where I decided to major in what I wanted to major in. I had gone to school thinking I was going to be a teacher, which I still am a teacher, but I realized I didn't want to major in education the first round through. I wanted to learn some subject matter, and so I ended up majoring in, I studied English and art history. And it was at that point, it was really interesting. There was something, it was a fall day, it was about like it is now, about the same time in the year, and I can point to that place. And so sometimes there's a place that is a pivotal moment. You're in this place and you can still see it. Some cultural turning point where you learn something that you didn't realize. I think over this last year, so much has happened. I think that there are a lot of moments that people have realized, oh, this is how the world really is. This is how I fit into the world. This is how I understand what I need to do. So they're bigger than us moments. Those moments where you realize you're a member of a larger group, a larger life cycle kind of thing. The turn in your life where you remember, and this could tie back to some of the other things like moving or someone coming into or going out of your life, but some turn where you can really see that turn. And most of us have those. I talk about those a lot in my classes. And then again, a new understanding. This might go back to the cultural turning point, but something where you finally understand again, oh, wait, I thought, I always joke about language because I teach language all the time. And I remember my mother talked fast like I do, but she used to talk when our house was messy. She would say, the house looks like a cyclone struck it. And I thought that was one word till one day the words separated themselves in front of my head. A cyclone struck it. And I realized that, and I realized that how about language, about the language for how we've learned language and how we come to understand. And when you learn a foreign language, when you learn a new language, lots of times that's how it feels. You'll feel like it's all one big long sentence, and then you realize the words start separating themselves. And I think languages are frequently that. Okay, do we have some questions? Kavya?
Sorry, there are none in the chat, Dr. Klayder. Does anyone have any questions about these 3 topics? Please feel free to ask. Now's the time.
If not, that's fine. Yeah. Well, think about, and we can go on with the others and talk about them at the end if people have more. That's fine too.
Yeah, I think let's move on to the next one.
All right, sounds good. All right, this kind of moves a little bit away from the personal, although it is always a personal statement, so you have to involve who you are in this. These are, I think these are becoming more popular as I look at essays. Is this a question? I'll check that later. Because we're all sort of, I think there's a sort of interest in how we fit in, how our work fits into current political or personal scenes. I think these are becoming more common options for the personal essays. I was looking at different colleges. And so sometimes people get nervous about writing these, being honest and being direct about them. But I think at the same time, it's a way, it's the old, who wants to belong to a club that doesn't want you? I think that you want to write an essay that lets them know who you are, if these things are really important to you. And again, don't choose these if these aren't the ones that you would like to write. On political causes, I mean, certainly right now, I think I've read a lot of essays recently about the notions of division and the sort of desire for conversation. And so that's going to be a sort of common issue, but how you talk about it is going to be how it makes a difference. Again, if you choose these large issue questions, you have to be careful not to just give a big, broad, general answer. If you're going to talk about something like division or something that is going on publicly and politically, you need to put yourself into it. Have you responded to it? Why is it important to you? What does this tell about you? Same thing with community involvements. I know many of you, I'm sure, are involved in a lot of community activities. I think I was just so impressed now with young people and how much they take part in the community, and they take part in food pantries and community gardens and helping boys and girls clubs and things. That seems a real common thing. So if you talk about that, if you talk about something like that, talk about your role and why it was important to you. What have you seen happen? How do you see that as something that can be bigger than you as well? These have a kind of bigger than you sensibility, but you can't leave yourself out. So it's a kind of fine line where you make sure you're a part of this conversation, but you see how what you're doing fits into this larger community, this larger issue. Again, what do you see as vital issues? And that might be something that you tie to what you want to do when you go on to school, what you're thinking of, what are some general areas. Many people change what they plan to do when they go to college. And so don't lock yourself in unless there's a scholarship you're applying for, and maybe that you want to make sure you can get that money. It's helpful, but make sure you understand what the issue is and why it's important. Issues of diversity, again, are another question that people are asking much more frequently in recent essays, and talk about that issue for you as you see it being important in your life and how you want to make that important work for you. Try to make it purposeful, not just descriptive, I guess I would say. And again, injustice is another one that I've seen a lot of essays about. What do you consider a primary injustice in American culture, in the world, in your city, in your home, whatever. What do you see it to be, and why is it important to you? How does this show something about you? Now, any choice you make on something like this is going to tell something about you. I mean, because you made that choice, and the choices of examples tell you things. So you don't have to say I, you know, you don't have to say, and then I did, and I did, and I did, but you can say what I see, or what seems important to me, or what I've learned from, or what I am learning, or what I hope to learn. All those things can be a part of this when you're talking about these larger issues. Okay, and go to the next one. Yeah, this is pretty common on a lot of essays, is to be able to talk about something you've read, seen, heard, done. And so I put up just a selection of them. Mostly they're vaguer questions. They ask you to choose. Sometimes they'll specify a book because they want to know that you're a reader. But sometimes they don't. And sometimes it's an interesting thing to choose something a little bit different if that's important to you. Once again, just like the larger issues, you need to talk about why and what about it. And then this is a chance for you to really, if movies are really a meaningful part of your life, talk about the movie in a way that you know the movie, and what are the specifics of the movie that made you really see that this movie made a difference, or this movie was stylistically meaningful or important to you, or this movie is a culmination of something, or is a motivating thing. Lots of times cultural production, lots of times the arts are motivators. How did a piece of music, or a book, or a performance, or a painting, or a sculpture motivate you to become something more? I think lots of these things can come out of travel. You'll go someplace and see something that really just wakes you up, a piece of work that wakes you up, or even a museum exhibit that woke you up, that told you something new. Sometimes the architecture can tie back to some of the other pivotal moment things. Again, these are all interactive in a way, like a piece of architecture that just was so astounding and so important and meaningful to you that you felt being in that place broadened your perspective or opened you up to something new. So this is fun to think of. These are ones that are fun to think about. Just like if I had to write about my favorite movie, what would I say? If I had to write about my favorite painting or book or so those are fun, just notes to keep, because this is the kind of thing that frequently comes up in interviews if it doesn't come up in your essay, just to have thought about it, to sort of have things to say about it. So you don't go, I don't know, I like a lot of movies. You don't go into that kind of hesitation. So these are fun things to think about, and not bad to kind of have in your little portfolio, and to keep adding. It's kind of like a journal. I guess the portfolio is really more like I'm applying for things journal sort of thing. Okay. Next. All right. Yeah, this has become an interesting one. I saw this on about 10 different college application essays I looked at about the notion of history. And I was interested in that because I haven't always seen those, and they're sometimes creative, and they're sometimes really, really very specifically historical. It's a way to look at a person from the past, or a person in history, or the role that person played in history. Why do you think that person is important in history? I could imagine right now people writing about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. What role did she play as a woman on the court? What role did she play for women? I mean, I can see that being an essay that certainly resonates right now, and it makes sense that someone would write about it. Sometimes they'll get creative and say, what would you talk about if you had dinner with a famous person? Where would you go? Where would you have this dinner? Where would you want this to be? Or maybe sometimes they'll choose a conversation with two famous people and trying to find out what kind of interaction you think would happen with the three of you. Sometimes it's putting a historical person in a situation. For instance, bringing a historical person to the current political or social context. What would someone in the past do with the pandemic? You know, how would we do that if we brought those things? So they're hypotheticals frequently. And if you like those, if you kind of like to what if and perhaps in your brain, those are great because you can get creative, and there's not, but it still shows who you are. You don't, this is one where if you're uncomfortable saying I did, then you can choose one of these and really kind of show your creativity and your interest. You show your interest by what you choose and who you choose, because that's going to tell them more about you than you think. And then also cultural commentary tied to history. What was one of the questions I read was, if you could change anything in the past about your country, about the world, what would it be? And what do you think the effect would be if that were changed? It's kind of a time travel question, which is kind of fun and whimsical, but also serious. So you get the chance to be creative, but also remember that they're going to learn who you are by this, and you want to make sure they do. So put yourself into that situation by choosing something that's really interesting to you. Okay. Do we have any questions? Kavya?
Yes, Dr. Klayder, we have two. So the first question is, can an essay be the same across different applications?
Yeah, as long as you're responding to the prompt. That's the biggest issue. If several universities are asking for a pivotal moment, or a pivotal situation, or an achievement, certainly you can make them that. Sometimes they will weave into those questions, what is an achievement that what is something you've accomplished, and how will going to the University of Minnesota or the University of Kansas help you fulfill and go on, with what you've accomplished there. So you have to be careful to think about what it is what they're asking and how much you need to tie it to the place where you're going. But sometimes you can. Yeah, I mean, sometimes absolutely you can use the same essay. Just make sure that you're being really true to the prompt and not just forcing, it's like putting on the wrong size clothes. You don't want to force yourself into a prompt when it's not really answering.
And then the next question is, when there's an optional supplementary essay about additional information or special circumstances not covered in the application, is it encouraged to write something, or should I keep it blank?
Well, I think it's a chance to say things. So my sense is, if possible, if you have something to say it. And it doesn't have to be. I think lots of times people over the past have felt like that had to be the hardship essay, and that's going away kind of. I know in our new honors application that we've sort of opened up so everybody kind of answers the extra information through the short answer questions we've developed, which I really like. But I think that there are lots of things you might talk about, some special, maybe if you didn't write about a pivotal moment, or if you didn't write about some special circumstances, then perhaps this is a chance for you to do that. Or if you wanted to talk more about something you accomplished or want to do, you can put that in. I would use this as a chance to say something you feel like is important about you, not just like a cool thing to share, but important about you that you haven't been able to show in any other way.
And then we do have another question.
Okay, good.
It's about the COVID supplemental essay, and the question is, should a student actually write it? It's thought to be supplemental and optional, so is it necessary?
Well, I think, again, if you can make it an opportunity and not something that you feel like you don't have anything to say about. I think that most of us, as a teacher who's teaching by Zoom a lot now and getting to know my students as personally as I can that way, and having, so I could write an essay. I could write a Coven essay about what I've learned, about what translates in my teaching and what doesn't, and how to make that translate, or how to learn new ways to get that to translate. I'm sure students are learning in different ways and figuring out how to make it work for themselves. I think it's a way to talk about how it's really kind of the same as an obstacle question in a lot of ways. I think the other day I teach a personal essay class at KU for mostly juniors and seniors who are applying for getting ready to apply for graduate school or law school, national scholarships like the Rhodes, Marshalls and stuff. And I had them all write 15 minutes about COVID, you know, what that was. And then they all shared kind of just what the issues were. They didn't really read them. They talked about what did they focus on. And some people focused on the lack of accessibility and health accessibility and how some people were really suffering and the loss of income. And some people talked about how it gave them free time. And we talked again about then the context of that. Be aware that if you're going to talk about free time, know that some people are going to be talking about how much they've lost income. So I think when you're talking about the COVID situation, be careful not to be nonchalant about it, not to be flippant, but to recognize that this is a big thing. And how do you see it affecting you, and what have you learned from it in the larger sense? So those are anytime in those extra essays, be careful not to be flip, I guess is what I'd say.
Awesome. Okay. I think that's it for this round.
Okay, great. All right, these are, like I said, these all kind of intertwined, but the ones I saw that really sort of focused on growing up were really kind of tied to those supplemental essays sometimes, about what about your growing up has influenced you. What about your environment, your family, the influence you have, you know, the guy down the street that, you know, helped you learn how to, you know, canoe, the community that you're in, larger family. I think it gives you a chance to talk about that. And I think that that this is a really nice place to put to really focus on your narrative, I guess I would say, not just your personal narrative, but the fact that you're a member of a community. What I sensed from these essays was that the schools were asking to see how you were a member of something, how you belong, how you fit in, and how you kind of relate to those influences and experiences of your community, and your awareness of that community. Are you aware of how your family operates? Are you aware of how your community operates? I know one of my former students, or I've had several former students here on the city commission. They were undergrad students on the city commission, and how they learned how the city worked. And that, you know, that would be an interesting story, something like that. So how did your growing up, how did your childhood, or the way your family worked, the family dinner? There's a wonderful little exercise to do where you draw dinner at your house. Are you on a couches in front of a TV? Are you eating serially and singly? Are you at a table? Those kinds of things tell you. And so there might be some event even in this growing up that's kind of the marker. I've had students write about that a lot, just in like first day essay kinds of things, about what the family gathering kind of thing. How did that influence you, and how important that is? It tells a lot about your own stability or your own influences and where you found that stability, I guess. So there are ways to sort of explore this one. There are a lot of different ways I think you could explore this one. And if you have questions about this one, I'd be happy to talk a little bit more about it, because it has a lot of broad possibilities. Okay, next one. Yeah, they like to give you that famous quotation. They want to tell you what somebody said. And the first rule is, if the quotation doesn't like just slap you in the face and make you excited, then don't do the quotation question. If you have to do the quotation question, check it out, read what it's in, maybe know the context of the quotation. Lots of times they'll pick these quotations out. This is kind of a concern for me. As an English teacher, they just pull these quotations out and they don't have anything to do with what they really had to do with, but they make them. So look it up. You know, I would encourage you, if you're going to write about a quotation, look up where it came from. That's a common one. Sometimes they'll just give you a statement, like it's a statement that you have to react to. So it's not a famous quotation, but it's a statement here, you know, everyone should eat an apple a day, you know, I don't know, and respond to that. I mean, have some weird ones. sometimes they'll ask you for a quotation. That's not uncommon. What quotation can you think of from a work of literature or a famous speaker applies to your current situation? How, and so choose it. That's a fun opportunity to get that favorite quotation you have out there, but it's also keep in mind that you're going to have to talk about what it meant to you and why it's there. And then this one this was one I actually saw. What quotation would you like to send to a particular leader and why? And what do you hope this quotation would help the person learn? So these are kind of fun ones, but there are lots of different versions of the quotation or the statement. So sometimes, I guess the biggest thing I want to say about that is they're not always asking you a question. They're giving you a statement that you have to figure out how to contend with, how to make meaningful for you. And I would make sure, this is when I think it's like tying to the prompt, make sure you're not messing with the prompt, that you actually refer to the quotation, get the statement in, use the quotation within your text so that it becomes clear that you're really responding to what they said, not that canned essay you had over in the portfolio that you just decide, well, that'll work here too. Okay. Okay, this is one I wanted to get to these because I think they're just really interesting. Occasionally, people come up with these weird concept questions, and University of Chicago, as I say, it says here, they're famous. If you just go, I'm just going to encourage you to go look. If you go to the University of Chicago admission essays, they're crazy. Here's one of them. This is one I really kind of liked. A man cannot be too careful in the choice of his enemies. This is a quote by Oscar Wilde. Othello, Iago, Dorothy and the Wicked Witch, Autobots and Decepticons, history and art are full of heroes and their enemies. Tell us about your relationship between you and your arch enemy, real or imaginary. Now, this one's really kind of, lots of these concept questions kind of put you in a little bit of a bind, and they want to see how you come out of it. So it's these are not so much who are you, what was your life, or what is important to you. They're getting it through like they give you a kind of written obstacle, like an essay obstacle. A couple others, let's see if I can find. Let's see. Susan Sontag wrote that silence remains inescapably a form of speech. Write about an issue or a situation when you remain silent and explain how silence may speak in ways that you did or did not intend. Just an interesting thing about quietness in that sense. So there are hundreds of those. There's a quote by Miles Davis, the jazz artist: don't play what's there, play what's not there. And then you're supposed to write an essay in relation to that. There's so many ways that can go. So these are the ones that don't jump on these unless you feel like you can have some fun with them and make some sort of, like, there really are little essays or little personal essays. They're more, they're creative nonfiction in a lot of ways, what they're doing. And I could see these being written, and in fact, they've collected them. They even give credit to the students who wrote them, so or to inspire these things. So here's another one: Dog and Cat, Coffee and Tea, Great Gatsby and Catcher in the Rye. Everyone knows there are two types of people in the world. What are they? I've seen that question in other places too. The two types of people. That's a pretty common division thing. So those are really all based on concept. They're not really where you tell that story in your life. They're the ones that tell you that you just get to sort of play with something and you tell about yourself, not by telling about yourself, but by writing things that exhibit how you think, the issues that you notice. We learn a lot about people, and they're sort of assuming that they're going to learn a lot about you by the way you answer that question, not so much about what you tell about yourself. Okay. Any questions?
I don't think we have any new ones, but I have a question for you.
Okay, good.
Is there a topic that college admissions don't want to write about, don't want to hear about when you write about it?
Well, I think there are some that they've read before a lot of times, and that's what you want to be careful about. And I think, as much as I think writing about athletics is a good thing, especially if it's really important to you, I've read a lot of, I finally won that race answer. And again, if you're going to write the race essay, then you have to talk about who you are and what it was and why it was important, rather than, I always loved to run, I was a really good athlete, and then, finally I got first place and it made my day and I was happier. That's not going to tell them very much about you, because it's going to be, anybody could write that. Everybody's had something they wanted and they've gotten it, and then they're happy. So you have to, that's why even introducing the obstacle into the achievement makes some sense. So that's why one of the reasons I put all the categories up was sometimes sort of bringing those kinds of things together helps. So I don't know, since it's interesting that there's a COVID question, that they're asking that. I think probably a lot of places are asking that so that they don't get it as the only essay, because otherwise they're going to end up with, I didn't get a graduation, and I've been out of the classroom for 6 months, and I really feel like I lost my high school experience, and those kinds of things. I think the way, by not having that be the main essay, then they're getting the COVID kind of response, but then they can have another essay. So I think that's interesting. So, which tells me, I think, be careful if you write an essay, unless it's something that's going to be really different from everybody else's. You just want to, and again, it's not just trying to be the cleverest person on the block. It's really trying to get at you. What is it that's something that you have to say and you care about and you want to do? I also want to invite my colleagues out there. Natasha's out there, I know, and I know Sarah's out there, but please jump in and say things in addition. I'm not the only person in the room that reads thousands of essays, so I would really love the support. Yeah, Natasha, I think, has something. I didn't see it, but Natasha, can we unmute Natasha?
Oh yeah, I can talk. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, I was just saying, I was echoing what Kavya said earlier, that I think that the advice that you're giving, Dr. Klayder, is extremely on point. I was texting Professor McCluskey-Fawcett earlier that I hurt my neck from nodding so hard. So please do, for those of you who are watching at home, please do take notes. I am on the college admissions side of this process, and this is extremely valuable advice. I couldn't agree more, in particular with the idea that you should be writing the essay you want to write. I think that students really do sometimes have this idea in mind of what we want to hear, what we want to read, but it does come across when a student is particularly inspired by a particular topic or an insight or, a moment in their own lives. So if you can write the essay you want to write, we'll enjoy it more as well.
Yeah, we want to read you.
Yes, exactly.
That's the biggest thing. Yeah.
And I do think, Mary, you're doing an amazing job, by the way. I think the challenge for a student to come across as is unique is really very difficult. And I think some students, and I think this is particularly true of women, tend to downplay some of their strengths and do kind of, well, I was a National Merit Scholar, but I was just lucky or whatever. And it's hard to sell yourself without feel like you're being either arrogant or pretentious. And I think this is a very difficult thing. And I want to, Alice and I have been texting, just reading Alice and I went to college 50 years ago, just reading some of those prompts from University of Chicago are making us anxious just thinking about having to do that, and we don't even have to do it. I think it's important to try to just relax and take Mary's advice on how to very just sort of systematically work through this whole process. I love the idea of stashing your ideas away. You may never use them, but a lot of times those fleeting ideas are some of the best ideas you'll ever have. So Mary, thank you. Can continue with the enlightening all of us here, but it is a stressful process for students, and I know for their parents it's very stressful too. But Mary, your advice is fantastic. I wish more students could benefit from this.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about what you said about women and about people who are shy about tooting their own horn or whatever. I think a way to make that both meaningful to the people reading and not to undercut someone is to talk about how meaningful it is and how what you want to accomplish with that. I've seen this last year we had a student who he won the Marshall Scholarship, and he's in the UK, and he grew up without any money, but the way he talked about that, rather than a pity story, he talked about what he learned from that and how he wants as a doctor and a global health specialist to change that. And to, you know, it was an amazing kind of, it just showed the path that he wanted to take and could take. And I think I see that as really powerful, that when you have this determination in you, don't downplay that at all. Don't downplay that passion or interest. And that doesn't mean don't be shy about that. Don't be shy about what it is you care about, because that's the only way anything's ever going to get done. It's the only, then people recognize that. We all want those people in class. We all want you to be comfortable with what you care about, and to share that. So I think that if that can show up in the essay, that's 80% of it. Do proofread though. I have to say that. All that passion needs to be proofread.
I have one question here. How early should students start creating their portfolio?
Well, I mean, I think anytime they have an idea. I mean, if you're a sophomore in high school and you have ideas just about who you are, just kind of keeping track of things that were important to you that year. I mean, I always say keep a journal. I don't keep a very consistent journal. I have a journal assignment in my 205. Natasha actually did that journal at one point. And people always really feel like they're so glad they have it. Nobody's ever sorry they took piano lessons or kept a journal. But it's that sense of, if you have some ideas, just get them down, have a place. The nice thing about computers is you can just put them on the cloud and they'll be there for a while. And so I think that's important. If something happens to you that you feel like is important, but also for real though, I don't know if you're going to apply during the fall, certainly like sometime even spring of junior year or something starts happening, you start thinking where you're going to go. When you start thinking about where you're going to attend college, start thinking about what you want to say about yourself. And that helps you think about what college you want to go to and why that college is important. If you start thinking, I want a broad liberal education and I don't exactly know what I want to major in, but I just want to get I'm just so hungry to learn, that makes you think, well, maybe the state U is going to be a good thing. I mean, it really does help you make those decisions. So they're all related to each other. If you really feel like I have to go to the best engineering school on the planet, and I want to have a marketable idea when I graduate, well, and that's going to show up in your essay, and that's going to show up in your choosing. So there's some relationship there. So as soon as you start thinking about where you're going to go to school and what you want to do and how that wants to go, start thinking about who you are and start looking. You can find these questions online all over the place. I mean, I didn't go to any special data bank that, people who read essays goes to. I just Googled schools and got lots and lots. And there are also sites about writing these. Some of the sites are really good. Some of the sites really are supportive to make you write what you want to write. Some of them are very formulaic suggestions. So be careful, be careful of here's how you do it, right? This, one paragraph does this, one paragraph does that. Don't get stuck with that. It's not really going to give you a chance to show yourself off.
Okay, and then we do have one, but this is kind of a fun question. What's the most unique essay you came across?
What's that? I couldn't hear. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
What was the most unique essay you came across?
The weakest? Well, I mean, I've read a lot.
Unique essay.
The weak as in, sorry, is it on the question here? Oh, the most unique. Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't think I think about them being unique or not unique. That's not what I think about. I think about them being authentic and meaningful. I think sometimes unique can kind of come across, if I think it's unique, if I think it's just a one-off thing, then sometimes it's just clever and not so much meaningful. I remember, I mean, I can tell you essays I've written. There was a student who applied to law school, and he, you know, he was a really wonderful person, but he talked about his parents as foster parents and what effect that had on him and his desire to go to law school and do, you know, meaningful work there. And the way it was not even the topic. It was just the way, the sensitivity and tenderness with which he discussed his parents it was just so meaningful because it was so real. I read an application essay this last summer about someone talking about his mother who was a single mom for him from the time he was 1, and something he'd never even talked to her about how much respect he had for her, and those things, you know, that was meaningful. But I think just the sense of authenticity and, you know, really feeling like this is what I want to say, not is this good, this is what I want to say, this is what I mean, has more effect than unique or clever. It's just, this is really what I want to say about myself to go there.
Mary, could you talk a little bit about sort of the importance of the opening few sentences to make sure that people want to continue to read your essay without going, oh, this is another one about X.
Yeah, don't start with the most pivotal moment in my life was. I mean, don't start that essay. You want to show the moment, I think. If you're going to write about a pivotal moment, it depends on the essay, of course. If you're going to write about a pivotal moment, put them in the pivotal moment, put them in that situation, put them in the scenario. So have them finding out what's happening in that, you know, so something descriptive in that way. There's not one simple thing, but like I was trying to think about the cat, just a second, let me think about, it's just, you don't want to do too much. Well, I always call it, you know, revving up, like written, you know, half the time on even the essays in my English class, I always say, just, you know, sometimes you can just rip off the introduction, and don't be afraid to do that. I mean, if you just don't worry about your first draft having it be the perfect first sentence. That's what I'm going to say. Just start writing about the thing, and then start realizing, what can I get rid of at the top? Or maybe that should go someplace else. Mostly you can just get rid of that written stuff. You know, it can go away. And so, so what I would do is find, you know, when you're in the middle of your writing, when do you really get going? When does the energy hit? Then that might be where you start. And that might be what you put up front, is that energetic thing that shows a comment from someone, you know, something about, you know, what someone said to you, maybe the thing they said to you, or the image that struck you, that has been the thing that caused you to want to do this kind of thing, on some sort of cultural commentary or something. A line from the book, if you're going to talk about your favorite book, maybe a line from the book, or where you were sitting. There's a wonderful short story by Cortazar about a person that's reading in a chair, and this whole kind of wrapped up the immersion in that book kind of thing. But try to make it present, not just not filler, not transmittive in a way, not something that's just like you're about to begin to commence to start your essay and then you start it. So you want to get to that part that starts. So that's why I wouldn't worry about it on your first draft. I would worry about it later when you think, what am I really saying here? Yeah, I see a lot of questions and comments about here. What are some, let me see the chat. About reading a book on it. I think it's always good to read things, and it's always good to know that they're not necessarily perfect. And so if they say there's one way to write the essay, but this is a way. I mean, just change their language and think about it like that. This might be a way to do that. If you feel like that's not how you write, like if you write an essay that way and it feels stilted, it feels uncomfortable, then it's not going to work for you. So that's the thing I'd be careful of. Don't put your, don't wear the clothes that you don't like. I mean, that's the thing with those essays too. Make sure it can be good to get you, they're good prompts. It's like prompts. They can give you good ideas about things to think about. Just like today, there are things you might not want to do that I said. That doesn't mean it won't be a good essay. Just make sure that you're not taking it as this is the way.
Dr. Klayder, we have some couple questions about just what you said. Do the amount of paragraphs matter in an essay?
They'll usually give you some sort of page length. Usually they're usually 500 to 1,000 words. That's what they have always been. That's 2 to 4 pages. So more like 500, I think, probably, because a lot of people have to read a lot of these, so they tend to keep them about 500. And the value of paragraph, we always think of paragraphs being, I changed subject here. And then you think, did I really change subject here? So people get all caught up in that. It's mostly visual. Visual breaks are more important than, and you don't want to just change in the middle of a topic, but paragraphs are a lot more ambiguous than we say as, rule mongers. So just make sure you don't have one big paragraph, because that'll drive people crazy. They'll go, oh my God, I don't know what I'm looking at. This is too much. So break it up. And then if you also break it up at a sentence that's catchy too, it's not only the first paragraph that keeps people going, it's that, start that next paragraph with something rather than, and then don't start a paragraph then, because you'll lose everybody. And I assume some others on the chat.
Yeah, there are one question's about showing and not telling, because I know there's a big emphasis on that even when we're writing school right now. So what are some examples of showing and not telling when it comes to
well, that's like I was talking about putting people in the place, or showing the like if you say I work all the time at the community garden, and every Saturday I go and we pick a lot of stuff and 500 people come and we all get enough food, and it's like, okay, there's one writing teacher calls it the secret of once. And you can say, the sort of example for that is, I love going to my grandfather's farm. We go and we ride the tractor, and then we sit on bales of hay, and then we go see the cows, and then we go see the sheep, and then we eat a big dinner, and then we go home. Yeah. Okay. The secret of once is, I love going to grandfather's farm. We go to we ride the tractor, we do this, but one time we were on the tractor and my grandfather hit something and we didn't know, and blah, 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 blah. So that onceness, the sort of singularity of a moment, that's kind of what is about showing. It's not just being overly descriptive and putting 3 adjectives in front of an apple. It's really putting the person in the situation. If you're running that race, I'm at the finish line and I never thought I would be here. I never thought I would get to this. I never thought I would run again. I had 3 knee surgeries, and I never thought I'd run again. Put them at the finish line, and then what the situation was. Show that. Show the people you're working with if it's in that kind of situation. So it's not so much description show as putting someone in the scenario so that they can be there with you and feel the emotion you feel, or the compassion you feel, or the determination you feel. so that they're with you on it, not just like listening to you sort of promise them you're going to do good things. I was trying to see if there are others up here.
Making the essay in general. So would you suggest making the essay more about an event or more about the after effects of an event?
Yeah. What would I say? I think it could be either one. I mean, I think that if you're going to talk about the after effects of the event, then the event's important. And then you're just showing, I mean, I honestly think if you're going to talk about the event, you need to talk about the after effects of the event. I mean, I think they're both, it's like where you put your emphasis, but not making one, not making the event just that thing that, you know, I went to Puerto Rico and now I really care about that. You know, you have to really make sure what that was about. You have to make sure the event is clear and vivid and meaningful, but you also need to make it clear and meaningful what it is you got out of it. And that's where the learning is. And that's where they're going to see anybody can go anywhere, anybody can be in an event, but it's how you respond to the event is what shows your character and shows who you are, but still making the event as vivid as possible or as clear as possible is important. So I didn't answer that very well, except yeah. I think it's yes is my answer. Is there another one? It might be another one.
Yeah, and it's just that this person says that they're in 8th grade and they're just wondering, do you start the essay in 10th grade? Is there a specific grade you're supposed to start the essay?
No, I think you just keep thinking about, I mean, honestly, I think it's really great to apply for things, even if you don't think you're going to get them, or if, you know, because it gets you into practice. It's like you've put yourself out there. It's hard if the first time you've really tried for something is to write an essay for college. You know, I mean, you just feel like everything is on the line. It's too scary. You feel like you have to do it perfectly, just right. Just the fact that any of you who are here are already carrying ahead of time, you want to know how to do it. So I think just thinking about every time you apply for something, think about, how am I saying this? How am I writing this? How am I getting this across? Who am I? You know, what does this mean? And so it's not necessarily going to be your college essay. I think it's just going to be your essay. It's just going to be a chance to really sort of talk about what's meaningful to you and how it applies to this thing that you're interested in. So I think it's good to just try for things. You know, it gets you less nervous about it.
And then this last one is about just links to college essays. I think you were talking about earlier that there were some resources out there, and Hika is wondering if you could include those links in the chat or maybe just tell us where you found them.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see the weird ones, University of Chicago essay, let me see if I've got my stuff here. There are, if you just Google college application essays, there'll be some that are like companies, but some are just, they're just help sites. And those will give you a lot of different, what they do is, I think the most valuable thing that they give you is different questions rather than how to do it. And then you can kind of play with them. You know, it's kind of fun to play with those kinds of things. Almost every university makes it available, makes their essays available so you can see them. You can just go into the application thing and not apply and see what essays are. I don't know of a particular book out there that is like the winner for college essay applications, but I think even just thinking about writing nonfiction, you know, there are books on that might be more beneficial to you than writing college essays, because they're more about real writing and rather than formula. And so there are lots of really great books out there about that. So they're just plentiful and they're good ones. And then some of them are writing there are essays, collections of short essays. And those are more the length of a college essay. And those are at libraries, they're online. I mean, they're good just to read good nonfiction. Because I think in school, we read so much, we don't treat nonfiction in high school as much as an art form. We teach it as nonfiction is where we get information and fiction is what the art form. But in truth, creative nonfiction is right now the most popular art form. One of my former students, Sarah Smarsh, who's now a commentator on PBS and writing a book about Dolly Parton. She wrote a book called Heartland, which was she went to NYU and is now one of the most popular writers in the country because she did nonfiction. And she said she started thinking about it. She was in my some classes I taught, and I worked with her a lot, but it was when she started writing about herself. Her book, Heartland, came out of when she started writing about herself for a KU application, an honors application. So there you go. It's kind of like nonfiction. It's kind of, so that's a nice way to think about it. You're writing a sort of lovely little essay about something that's important to you.
And then Dr. Fawcett has a question. Does every college require an application essay?
I don't know that. Most do now. I think they didn't, like we didn't used to at KU. I think it's become a kind of thing, partly because we don't always require as much writing as we used to, and so that there's a sort of expectation of a level of writing when people come to college, and that's a way to sort of see it, especially for scholarships and stuff. I think most scholarships do.
Awesome. I think we can move on to the next slide.
Okay, this is, I think, our concluding stuff. So I think I've said these already. There's no right answer, there's no formula. But I do think one of the things is have people read it, have other people, don't be afraid to have other people read it, because the tendency, I do revision all the time in my English classes, because I don't want people to, you know how you close your eyes and you turn the paper in, except now you just press send and post, and then that way you don't really think about it, you don't reread it, you just write it. And so get past that. So have a friend read it, have a teacher read it, have your most trusted teacher read it, and somebody who likes you and cares about you. And and if you don't agree with them, you don't have to, I mean, don't just change essays to everybody who reads it, but just get different reads, and that can help. Something, like I said, one of the biggest things I see in that is order. The way things are ordered frequently is it's clear to you in your head, but it's not clear to them unless it's changed. Specificity, that's part of that show, not tell. Just be as, show the, you don't say, and then the dog ran up, say the collie ran up, or say, I was bitten by a dog. I mean, be just, again, not lots and lots of adjectives, just be specific about what it is, and specific when it matters. You don't have to add unnecessary specifics, but specifics that help you really capture the experience that you're trying to get across. Yeah. And I think an openness, one of the things, this is something I kind of haven't said yet. It's like when you're applying to college to learn, right? They want to see that you're somebody who wants to learn. So don't apply with a closed essay. Don't apply with a I know everything feeling essay, and then this happened and now I know exactly what I want to do with my life. Not really the best conclusion on it, because they want you to come open, and they might want you might know I want to go study psychology, as Natasha did, but I want to study psychology. I don't, so don't make it a closed this is the end result essay. Make it an open essay where you're growing. So
okay, I think the next slide is, I think, again, question and answer. Oh, just
okay. Yeah, edit, make sure, do proofread, edit, put it down, look at it 3 days later when you realize that you left out 3 verbs that you assumed were in there. I mean, it happens to all of us. Yeah, go back and keep the eye on the prompt. I mean, that's one of the things. And it's nice sometimes if you have the opportunity to include the prompt, if the prompt isn't at the top. If you just type something up, put the prompt at the top, it makes it easier for the reader to know if there are multiple prompts. So don't make them fish for it. And you, like I said, as I said before, you might have to write more than one essay, because you can't just fit all size fits all. So I think that's it.
Yeah, I think we have just one more question here. Should you be accurate in your essay?
Yeah, and as Natasha said, read it out loud. I think that's That helps with any kind of writing, I think. You start hearing, and you also could catch when you've said the same word, you said very way too many times, or you've said, you've used the same, you just kind of become repetitive. You realize, wait, I heard that before. And it's, you think about that more when you are doing it out loud than you do when you're just reading.
The question is, should you add humor to your essay?
Oh, I would say you can use humor. If humor is a part of the essay, you don't add it just like to put a funny thing in. I mean, some situations are just funny. And if that's what you want to write about, then write about that funny situation. And it's not inappropriate. I mean, humor can be really important, but you don't like stick it in like a extra, like a, it'll, if it stands out, if it seems awkward, but yeah, humorous essays are frequently ways we learn. I think a whole lot of the times I've learned, I've been ridiculous, I've been funny or stupid or something, and don't hesitate with that. And just like, that's again, where it's authentic. Are you authentically feel comfortable writing humor? Then that's fine. That's just, don't stick it in like as a important, catch their attention with this little joke, Knock, knock, who's there? No, that's how you start the start of an essay. It might get my attention. Other things.
Do we have any other questions later?
Well, it's been really great to.
Mary, can I just,
Yeah.
one thing I didn't mention when I did Mary's introduction is Dr. Klayder has led 53 study abroads, which I know is a record at the University of Kansas. And could you talk a little bit, Mary, just about the importance that you've seen in terms of student growth? Because I think when you're looking for colleges, it's really important to see who has strong study abroad programs in countries that you're interested in, or in countries that you may have never thought of studying in, and how that, in terms of both your personal and professional development, is so important.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a big fan. I'm waiting for this year to get done so we can start again. But yeah, I do 3 different programs, 1 program in Costa Rica and 2 in the UK. And one of the things, besides we have a huge study abroad program. It's one of the best things going with KU. And we have connections with a lot of universities. We have, but we also have a lot of varied programs, because I know lots of people think, well, I don't know if I could do a whole semester abroad, or to be honest, most people figure out a way if they decide they want to, but we have a lot of different shapes and sizes of programs. We have spring break and winter break programs. We have short summer program, month-long and 2-month-long summer programs. We have a semester and year programs, so that you can go and do varied things. We have programs that are tied to your major and programs that are not. In fact, 2 of my short-term ones, I have a spring break one and a winter break one, are frequently people from all different majors, and they learn from each other. And so when we go to another country, we're not just getting, oh, we're all English majors and we're all going to go to the Globe Theater. We get people who are in engineering and want to understand how the eye was built. We want those kinds of things where we're all learning together. I did not study abroad when I was an undergraduate. Study abroad was really different then. You had to do a junior year abroad, or there was no other thing that happened in school. That's expanded, and I got really involved in that kind of expansion. And I watched people change before my eyes. I mean, I can't say that enough. I am in touch with hundreds. I've taken, we figure, over 1,100 students abroad. And I'm in touch with, I think, everyone I've taken abroad, but they're just what they decided they could do. I had this person who'd never been out of Kansas. I've had several people never been out of Kansas. One person who'd never been past, she'd been to Wichita before she went to KU. Then she went on the London Review, my spring break trip, where everybody gets to kind of explore London and find their own specialty. Her mother and grandmother drove her to the airport because nobody'd ever been out of the country. And then after that, she spent a semester in Cork, Ireland. She spent a semester in Washington, D.C. interning. She's now representing the I mean, just this person who had never been out of Kansas is now essentially a global environmental history person. And just that's, I could say that over and over and over and over again. It's just phenomenal what the opportunity is, and to study with other students. I think it's nice to travel, it's good to travel, but the camaraderie, the depth of connection that happens in those things, people stay close forever and ever and ever and ever. We have Facebook groups that are still live from, you know, British Summer Institute 2013, you know, I mean, when we first began Facebook groups, and they're still, they post things and chat with each other. They become, it's a family in a new situation. And you'll find that if you go and stay abroad for a semester or something, the idea of going and staying with a host family, or again, taking classes with students from that other country, it's just phenomenal. I mean, it really is amazing. So go. Nobody's ever sorry they went and did that either. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Well, I think that wraps up our session today. Thank you so much, Dr. Klayder, for your Sunday morning today. This was very, very helpful. And this event would not be possible without Dr. Fawcett. She listened to my idea and we brainstormed and she got all the speakers for me. So thank you so much. And thank you, all of you, for being here. And I hope to see all of you at our next session on October 25th, where the topic will be choosing your major and honors program with Dr. Sarah Crawford. So thank you so much and have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.